Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel, The Drowned Kingdom Saga and Six Elemental Interviews. It's early morning where I am, afternoon, I believe, where my wonderful guest is. But I am just so honored to have such a brilliant author this morning. I have not had a chance to read his main series yet. However, I did read his novella, and it was absolutely brilliant, Night of the Moon. So we're going to hear all about that. But this morning, I'm joined by the fabulous Greg Kontaxis. How you doing, Greg?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. Great honor.
Oh, the honor is all mine, sir. The honor is all mine. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so privileged to have you here. So, and where are you joining me from?
London. So here is 1 p.m. So yeah, it's a bit later.
Yes, for sure. But you're definitely worth getting up early for on my side of the world. So I just want to quickly get into. I know we're going to talk about a lot of things, but so right now you're living in London, and you're originally from Greece. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. I'm from Greece. I'm from
Okay.
Athens.
Okay. And of course, Greece, one of the cradles of civilization, home of so many iconic philosophers. And I am a history nerd, and I grew up loving the classics, and a lot of them written by Greek philosophers. And Plato's Tale of Atlantis, of course, is near dear to my heart, and that was part of the inspiration for my series. But what was it like in terms of growing up and being in Greece and fantasy and the fantasy scene and what people were reading and how did where you grew up affect your love of fantasy and inspiration to become a writer?
That's interesting, actually. So, I mean, in Greece, even in school, in elementary school and high school, you have to study a lot of mythology. So it's compulsory. So you learn all the legends about the 12 Greek gods and many stuff around that, all the legends. But according to books, so fantasy books, this genre is not that big in Greece. So mostly Greeks read romance. That's the main genre over there. And the last years, a little bit of crime too, crime and mystery. So fantasy is not that big. You will find translated books from very big authors like Tolkien, J.K. Rowling, George Martin, Brandon Sanderson, but the very, very famous authors.
Okay.
So it's not that a big audience in Greece. But for me, mythology was great when I was a kid, and I liked many fantasy books. So whatever I could buy, whatever it was translated back then, I would buy it about fantasy. The other problem was that it's very expensive because when they translate a book, it's extremely expensive. So I remember that The Way of Kings from Brandon Sanderson, just the first book, they would break it in 4 parts, and each book would be like 20 euros. So just to get The Way of Kings, it's 80
Wow.
euros.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why the market is not that big, but now it's getting a little bit bigger. The last 5-10 years with all the Game of Thrones, the series changed that a little bit as well. But for me specifically, it started with mythology, then it was Harry Potter, that like all the kids started reading, and then it was Mark Lawrence and Brandon Sanderson that I started reading a lot, and then John Abercrombie. So yeah, all of this started influencing me, and at some point I decided to write something myself as well.
Well, I definitely see the brilliant but dark elements in the Night of the Moon novella. So when you mention writers like Abercrombie, etc., they're typically associated with grimdark and more the darker fantasies. So when you wanted to write and become a writer, did you also find though that the classics were still influencing you, or was it much more the modern stuff?
I think it's everything. Even if you don't understand it, they affect you. It's for sure. So I think every fantasy book has a little bit of good versus evil. Even if you have great characters and stuff like that, always I think stuff that you have read, they affect you and or see. But for me, I never thought that I would become a writer. So I had some ideas. It started like I would read some books or I would watch movies, and I would like the end to be a little bit different or something like that. And at some point, I had like a short story in my head, and I thought to write it, and it became 5 books. So it started becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. The Night of the Moon, the novella, is actually, I think, is one of the darkest stuff in the. It's not in the main series since it's a prequel, but it's one of the darkest. Books 3 and 4 are dark too, but yeah, the novella is is dark, I would say. And actually, I didn't even plan for that. So when I published the first book, I checked in the reviews and the comments who was the favorite character from the book one, and I decided to write a backstory for him, which is John in this specific case. So yeah.
I see. So wow. Okay, that's amazing. So now, in terms of writing a fantasy series, because some authors they're planners. Some are more spontaneous. Will take things as they go. Did you always set to write out an epic series? You said, for example, when you started writing, and people really identified and latched on to the John character, and because of his popularity, you decided to write a novella. Did you always plan to write a large epic fantasy series?
No, I thought it would be something small. I didn't know it would be 5 books. So I just started creating the world in my notes. And at some point I realized, okay, this cannot be 1 book. It will be massive. So then after a point, it was 3 books. I remember initially I thought it would be like a trilogy. And then it expanded even more because I have a very, very big cast of characters. So the novella has 2 main characters, but the rest of my books have many povs, many characters. They have like 7 to 8 povs per book, and my characters in total are like 200. So it's that's why I have a glossary in the beginning. So it started becoming very big, and yeah, I thought, yeah, it should be 5. So otherwise, the books will be very big and might be a little bit convoluted. So yeah, this is how it started. But when I started, I had no clue it would be that big.
Wow. So what do you think led to what was behind your decision to expand and make it a 4-book series and add novella? Like you talked about the novellas, why you did that specifically for John because of his popularity as a character with your readers. But what made you decide to expand the series?
So it was the characters mainly. So I felt after creating some characters that I need to I wouldn't say I need them to do more. I would say that I want to expand them as characters, their journey. I wanted them to like grow more, experience more things in the world. And secondly, it was the world itself. So I had so many places. I created a map, and I wanted the story to move in all the different places. So the reader travels everywhere in the world along with the characters, that they also grow, experience more things, they mature. And all this journey, I felt it wouldn't be possible to happen in 2 or 3 books or 1. So I wanted to use, the first book to grow some characters and the second book to grow some others. And also another thing is that in books 3 and 4, I introduced some characters that they don't exist in books 1 and 2. And these characters are introduced because other characters are moving in the world and they meet new people. And these characters become important, which is something I didn't even plan because I don't plan everything from before. So I have like some main events in my head. So I know there are some people that they plan everything. There are some people that they plan nothing. So I'm a bit of hybrid. So I have like a main structure in my head, but really, really main, the key events, nothing else. And then the rest comes while I'm writing. So many characters, they were created while writing, and then I felt like they need to grow more. They need to learn more stuff. They need to make mistakes, and that expanded the story too. So yeah, after the first book, I was sure that I will need 5 books.
Wow. So, but you've decided to cap it at 4, though. Is that correct?
Sorry, there?
You've decided to cap. You said you thought you might need 5 books. I know perhaps you're including the novellas, but so have you decided to? Sorry,
novella. 5 without the novella.
Without the novella. Okay.
So 5 is the main series, and the novella is just a prequel. It's just an extra.
Okay. Do you think you'll do more novellas as well?
Actually, I'm doing a prequel now. It will not be a novella. It's a bit bigger. It will be like a proper book, but it will not be that big as the main series books. So something in between, but it will be a proper book, which is another prequel. Which it starts 300 years before the book 1, The Return of the Knights. So it's way before the novella as well. And it's a story of a giant, actually, who is missing, let's say. So in the book 1, there are some rumors about him, and nobody knows what happened to him. So there is a story about that.
Okay. All right. That sounds fascinating. Yeah. That sounds fascinating. Okay. So perhaps we can dive in a bit now into the actual book stuff. So as I said, I haven't read your main series, but I read this was fabulous. It was dark. It was heartbreaking. It was so well written. But without spoiling that per se, can you give us an overall pitch essentially about what the series is about?
I'm thinking how to do without spoiling anything. So the main idea is about so it starts with a kingdom that it's about to collapse. So there is a queen that took a throne without even wanting it, since she was a kid, and because the previous king had no sons or daughters, so she got the throne as the closest relative, and she's about to die and lose the kingdom and lose everything from a tyrant that starts like a war, a rebellion against her uncle and then her. And suddenly, so the book starts there. So suddenly, the first book, before her end, let's say, a random boy, a villager appears out of nowhere, and through some situations, I would say, he makes it to talk with her and to say, I know you don't know me, but I have a plan and I can help you. And then many things happen. So initially they don't trust him, obviously. And then many different things happen that I don't want to spoil anything. But the main idea that I had for the story, because this is just a start, then this is like a 0.1% of what is going on. The main idea around the whole saga, the whole series, is that I was a little bit bored of this idea in fantasy that, okay, there is a war between humans, between kingdoms, between kings or whatever. And at some point there is an evil force that it will come to destroy us all. So we need to unite to fight that. I'm not saying it's bad, but I have seen it so much. So my main idea for my world would be that I have other races too, like elves, giants, centaurs, mermaids, the Elwyn, which is another race of mine, that they are better than humans. So humans are the problem. So they are, because we can see in human history a lot of many evil things. And my idea was that our human actions harm the other races instead of the opposite. And I tried to base the world and build it on that. That was the main idea I had, which, of course, when you start the series and all this war between the humans that affect everybody else, all the other creatures and races in my world, it starts with some human conflict with politics in the kingdom, and then it will expand, and you can see the ramifications, the issues that are created to the other creatures as well from all these wars and things happen. But yeah, those are the main ideas. So if I keep going, I will start giving spoilers. So
Okay, no, we don't want that. Okay, so just to clarify here, so and I wanted, it was so fascinating what you were saying, and very interesting point I want to latch onto. So and I don't think I'll spoil much for the Game of Thrones Song of Ice and Fire if you read the novel series, because it's one of the most well watched TV shows ever. In that, okay, so similar to that George R. R. Martin's series and the TV show, there's a huge existential threat of ice zombies that are going to essentially destroy the world potentially, and that the human politics are really, although they play such a huge role in the story, at the end of the day, they're really not that important. Excuse me. So is that, so when you say you were then, and I think I would agree with you that trope became very much, I wouldn't want to say played out. I mean, any tropes done well are great to read. However, I think what you were saying is that particular trope of having this big existential threat, and that the humans have to put aside their petty squabbling and unite. You'd seen enough of that to say, well, you know what, humans are the real problem, and make them the. Is that essentially what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. And you can see the same in Lord of the Rings in a sense. So at some point, for example, the elves and the dwarves, they are united, that they have huge conflicts because, yeah, we need to fight the orcs. That's it. So, yeah. And I thought that there are so many, okay, maybe not other races, but in real life, there are so many creatures that human actions affect, for example. So if there were other races, maybe it would be the same. That was the idea that I had, and I started develop the story. Of course, in my story, there are bad actions happening from other races too and stuff. But I'm talking more about the generic idea.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. So, but so taking that particular trope aside, though, I've definitely heard your series and your writing, especially your main series, described as much more classic fantasy. So, and perhaps that's because you have, a lot of the races that are traditionally explored in fantasy, like the elves, etc. But would you agree that your series harkens back? Does it have a classic fantasy feel?
Yeah, I think the first book, The Return of the Knights, is classic fantasy. So I think I started really classing because it's the trope of a villager boy who tries to save a kingdom, which is more or less common, and it's like good versus evil in the sense that those are the good ones, or are the bad ones. But yeah, that happens in the first book a lot, I would say. But then in books 2, 3, and 4 that I'm writing right now, I wouldn't say it's not that classic. I would say that it becomes more dark fantasy. It's not, I wouldn't label it as a grim dark, but I would label it as very unpredictable and becomes grim. So it leaves a little bit the classic element that the first book starts and goes a little bit darker.
Okay. So, because I know, again, with the novella, I found it to be quite dark, brilliantly done, or quite dark. And so, what was and I know essentially it was John's backstory. So you wanted to write John's backstory, and it is a backstory that is fraught with tragedy and some really bad things that happen. However, is the tone of the second, third books onward more like? Would you say it's more like this in terms of the more close to the grimdark?
The second, I would say, The Fall of the Giants is a bit lighter than the novella, but the story starts to become dark. Then the third and the fourth, I think it's more or less the same. So the impact starts being that big in the dark world as the novella, with the difference that the novella is a little bit, it's human oriented, while the books 3 and 4 involve many other creatures and races and stuff. It's way broader. But about the novella, the idea is that John, if somebody reads book one, John is older than the novella because the novella is like 20 years before the events of the first book, 17 years. And he's older. He's very cynical. He's very pessimistic. He doesn't want to help anybody. And people were wondering why he's like that. It's just that he was born like that. He's an opportunist or something. And this backstory shows his backstory, his life, and how he became like that. And I think if somebody reads that, he understands why he's so cynical and he doesn't want to risk anything, to fight for anyone. Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, I know we're trying to avoid spoilers here, but this was fabulous. John was such an interesting character in that, at first I was, and your characters are really fleshed out really well, drawn. I was trying to get a read on him. Is he just pragmatic? Is he bad? Is he just doing what he has to do to survive? Is he, because I think at first, and this is just my interpretation as a reader, and I, obviously want to hear what you as the author said. It was hard to get a read on him based on the fact of the situation that he was put in, and of course his profession, because he's essentially a bounty hunter. And, is he doing this because he doesn't feel there's any other profession that he's good at or he can be as successful at? But when he's given this mission, clearly it's something he doesn't want to do, but he feels compelled to do for various reasons. Again, I don't want to spoil it. And you see that as the novella goes on, bits and pieces of his, I think there's an inner nobility, peeks out. He is still even back then, I think. And again, I haven't read the series. He does have that streak of cynicism, I think, because of what he does. But at the same time, obviously, after the events that happened, it just exacerbates. And really, he's what happens hardens him, I'm sure. But what was great in the novella is that I honestly believe that so much of what brought out his personality was Nemesis, right?
Yeah.
And we get to see, that other side of him. So, again, I'm trying not to spoil it, but so maybe in your own words, can you give the audience, tell them what the novella is about?
So yeah, the novella is about a very important character of my main series, who is back then a bounty hunter, and he's really good at this. So he's very good at catching people, and he gets vast amounts of gold by doing that. And he thinks it's an easy job and well paid. So mainly he doesn't care about anyone. He has a drinking problem. He's in brothels all the time. And he ends up in a situation which is very bizarre for him, which is practically some king, I would say, or local king, from his reputation. He learns that he's the best of catching people, the best bounty hunter, and he assigns him a mission. So he has to find somebody who escaped the night of the moon, and bring him back because he committed a crime. And John never works for kings and stuff. He's a bounty hunter, works for small lords, and for gold, not that kind of of jobs from kings. And at the same time, they give him a woman who is a very good soldier to help him, as a punishment for her as well, because she committed another crime. And he ends up in this situation that he cannot say no, because the soldiers will kill him. And this trip starts to find the night of the moon. And in this trip, it's a very big adventure for him. And in this trip, many things will change. So he will find other sides of himself. And when they find this night, they will have, if they find him, they will have to think a lot and decide. He and Nemesis, John and Nemesis, what they want to be in this world, how they want to be remembered, and what essentially they want to do in their lives. Just stay a bounty hunter, just try to sell for something more, and that's the main idea. But yeah, it's a very dark story, as we said, and also it's inspired from. I mean, some I don't want to spoil, so some parts of it are inspired from something that happened in Greece some years ago that actually happened. It's a real event. Yeah, so yeah, that's it more or less.
Yeah, that's an excellent pitch, as only the author could do. One thing I found in the novella was one of the themes I felt that you explored with so well was all the different moral quandaries that the main characters found themselves. And you talked about, would they simply be someone who did their job, or would they do what they believed was the right thing? And I think in the novella, what you also paint so well is that sometimes the impossibility of doing both, and that no matter what you do, someone is going to suffer, right?
Yes.
Irrespective of your choices, and that for me is very classic grimdark. So again, and do you feel that most of your readers find that this novel is more on the grimdark side in terms of that?
Specifically, yes, because it starts grim too, and yeah, there is this sense of I'm hopeless all the time. So, and John is one of my favorite characters to write because I never know what he will do. He's very gray. He always changes decisions. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, sometimes it's and I'm trying all the time to be in his shoes myself and think like if I was at this situation, what I would do if I was him. So I'm trying to think like he would think in the sense of his personality, what he would do. And I never know what he will do. It's always I decide when I'm writing it. And that's why it's one of my favorites. So there are others that they are a little bit more defined in the sense that they try to do good all the time or bad. But yeah, I have many great ones as well. And these are the best. And John is, I would say, the biggest in the series. So it's it's a very nice thing to have a character like this when you write. But yeah, I mean that's something generic because in books 3 and 4, this good and bad that I'm saying it gets destroyed for all my characters. More or less.
Okay, all right. I'm looking forward to that. That's awesome. That's awesome. Now we also have to comment that specifically in this novel. There is a reference to the dripping bucket, which is essentially, for those of you who aren't aware of it, it is an interdimensional grimdark tavern. Can you talk a bit of? So I don't want to say anymore. I'll let you expand on that. But first of all, maybe you can tell the audience, for those who are aware, what the dripping bucket is and how it relates to.
Oh my God. I have no idea what it is. It's something. No, I'm joking. So yeah, in my story, it's just a tavern. It's just an inn, which happens in many different stories and novellas, and it's like we all interconnect our stories. And I found it really funny. So when I was writing this story, because the story starts in a place which is called Three Heads. And it's the crossroad of the north. So it's a place that you can follow 3 different paths and go to 3 different cities in the north. And people stop there. And there are some inns and some taverns to spend some time. So merchants or travelers or lords. And because the story starts there and there is some action there, I want to have like an inn or a tavern, call it that, and connect my story with so many other incredible indie authors that they do the same. And I found it fantastic. So that's why I got this idea. So in Greek, because I write all my books in Greek and I translate them. And in Greek, the name of the tavern is not the Dripping Bucket. So it was something would make more sense in Greek. But in the translation process, I really liked this idea. So I went for it.
That is awesome. And, just for those of you who aren't aware, the wonderful and very well-known indie author, Michael R. Fletcher, we have to give it up to him as essentially the creator of the Dripping Bucket. He and another fabulous author, Crystal Matar, author of Legacy the Bright Wash, well known for that. They also have a podcast that is named after this tavern, the Dripping Bucket. So check that out if you're not aware of that. But I just thought it was awesome to see that show up in the book. So,
that's a fantastic idea, actually.
Yeah. Now, and it's funny. I find it very symbolic. The location in the beginning, because yes, it was a location where from there you could take different paths, and I think that was a big theme in the novella, that it's the paths you take. That's what the relevance was here. What you're going to do with your life. You have choices. There's free will, but depending on your choices, it could lead down very different paths that can have very severe consequences. So can you talk a bit without spoilers about specifically, and at the crux of this novel, is how the relationship between John and Nemesis evolves, to a point? Because again, clearly, initially, there wouldn't have been a lot of trust between them. They were kind of forced together, but I found it to be awesome. That was one of my favorite parts of the novel.
So I think it's something that I've seen in real life as well, in different situations, of course, that it's two different people that they grew up really differently, with completely different targets and goals and aspirations for their life. And then when they are in some difficult situation that they need to decide what is bad or good, what's wrong or right, they realize that even if they are so different, they have some things in common which are very strong. And maybe it's harder to find something in common on those things with somebody else than all the others, the common stuff, the small things when you grow up. So, and they have to decide together. I mean, each one of them for different reasons, what they need to do in this life. What is more important? I mean, loyalty, honor, what you swear, your vows, or if you're on the other side, money, reputation of a bounty hunter to make money, these things. So yeah, what would be better for your life, or to do the right thing? So yeah, this is, and maybe they realize at some points, and some points maybe they disagree a lot on their decisions, that the most important thing is to do the right thing. And it might bring them close, or maybe one of them decides that, I mean, they change decisions. So maybe, at some points of the book, they think like, okay, this is the right thing to do. Maybe they change their mind. So yeah, that's because I don't want to spoil. But this is more or less the main idea, that some people are really, really different at first glance, but maybe in another situation, they can, when they spend time together, they realize that we're not that different as we think. It's just how we grew up and stuff, but in the deep core, we're not that different.
Yeah, and again, that was one of my favorite parts of the novella, and it was brilliant. So for me, without spoiling me, because obviously I very much plan to read your main series. After I've read, now that I've read the novella, can you give me a little bit of a hint of what is John like? Like, what is he like in the beginning of the series after this? Like, what is his personality? What's his frame of mind? Where is he after all of this?
So first of all, just to show, that's the first book, The Return of the Knights, that John appears, and then I have the backstory in the novella that you showed many times. Actually, I have all the books here. So then it's The Fall of the Giants, which is the second
show them off
book in the series, and
beautiful covers. Beautiful color.
This one is my favorite. And then it's The Rise of the West, which is the third book that was published like 2 months ago. No, sorry. Actually, it's 4 months now.
4 months.
And yeah, time flies. And actually, in 10 days, I have my publication in Greece as well for the fourth book.
Oh, congratulations!
This is this one, but it will come in English next year. So yeah, about John, how he is, that's a very interesting question. So I think at the beginning, people will hate him because he's extremely, but who knows? I mean, he's extremely pessimistic, and it's like he gives. I don't know how to say. He's like a reality junkie. So everybody says, "Yeah, we're gonna do this. We have a plan." As he had a plan in the novella.
Yes.
We have a plan. We'll make it. It's a master plan. Nothing can go wrong. And he's always like, "Guys, we all are gonna die. It's nothing is gonna work. We are doomed." And whoever believes or something, loyalty or honor or something, he's an idiot. So just take care of yourself, live the best life you can, and that's it. Forget anything. But then he sees like he meets this young boy, Elliot, who is the boy that I mentioned before, who tries to help the queen, and he sees something different in him, and something. It's not about loyalty or being a good soldier, because he sees that all the time. But someone that he's really selfish, I would say, and he thinks, I haven't seen that for a long time. I mean, in the beginning, he thinks he's an idiot, actually, but yeah, during the story, things change. But it's not that, in the story, John, at some point he becomes a loyal companion. He's very loyal to somebody. He's never loyal. So you might think that now he's your best companion, and next day he leaves. It's you cannot trust him. But yeah, he's very pessimistic and cynical, and always he's like he's also wise. So if his character was different, he wasn't such a a drunk and stuff like that, maybe he would be a counselor to a king or something, because he has very deep knowledge about how people operate, how people think. So he would be a very valuable counselor or something. But of course, he doesn't want that. He looks for easy money, easy gold. And yeah, this is after. So he was a bit like that even before the Night of the Moon. So in the beginning of the story, but after all the things that happen in this book, he becomes really, really, really cynical. Yeah, that's the main idea.
Yeah, I think everything that I've heard and read, and your series is, by the way, is quite popular in the indie sphere. It's really, kudos on all the popularity. It's really taken off. I think the Return of the Knights has something like 300 reviews on Goodreads. It's been very popular, well received. But I think for a lot of people, the novella is one of their favorite installments. And I think because it's helped them understand, I think the comments I've seen, it helps them, like, because John is favorite character, this novella helps them understand John and why he is the way he is. So I think it was a fantastic decision on your part to write that novella specifically with his backstory.
Yeah, I think it's that many people love this character and they want to know more, but also it's about the writing style evolution. So when I because I wrote The Return of the Knights before the novella, and then I continued the main series, and I have the other 3 books out that I have now. And the thing is that when I started writing, I followed a lot the Greek style of writing, which most of the Greek authors write, which is more like God narrator style.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, you have like the God narrator who like tells the story, and at some point you had hope in the characters. And this is not very popular these days in the English market, while in Greece we do it a lot. And we have a lot of info dumps and stuff. So yeah, and then before I published the book in English, so The Return of the Knights is my only book that the Greek version and the English version are very different. All the other books are more or less the same, besides some editing parts that I do, because I do another round of editing in English and I have an editing in Greek as well. So the English comes after, some things change, but not main parts. But for the first book, yeah, there is a big difference, because when I asked some people in the English market when I translated the first book, they told me that this style doesn't fly really well these days. So maybe some years ago it would fly better, but not now. And especially Mark Lawrence gave me a lot of advice around that. Don't ask me how. I just sent him an email and he replied, it just happened. And I decided to change a little bit the style and make it more third pov oriented. And I changed that directly in English in book 1 myself. But after in the novella and books 2, 3, and 4, it's more natural, because in the Greek book I did it like that and I liked it better actually. And then in the translation it was very natural. In book 1 it was a transition that I did directly in the translation. It was a bit different. So this book is a bit hybrid, because it's a bit story oriented and not that character oriented. So it's like the Greek book is completely story oriented, and then the English is like half and half.
Yeah.
While all the rest of the books, the novella and books 2, 3, and 4, are very character oriented. Only the first, it's a bit of a hybrid, which it jumps between story and character oriented.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think this is what helped many readers to bond more with the characters after the novella, because they saw the other part of John as well, who is, I would say, the best developed in the book 1, and then continue with the series and see more of that. But yeah, when I started, I had no experience of that. So I had nobody to tell me about the English market until I talked to Mark and some other people then. And yeah, this is how that happened. But in Greece, this style is very different. So Greeks really like to write very long books with many info dumps, with a lot of God narration.
I actually love, to be honest with you, I actually love that style as well. And maybe it's because of my love for the classics, and I don't have an issue per se with it. I think as long as it's well written and it's well done, I'm a fan of a variety of styles of writing, right? I think as long as it's well written and it's well done, I'm not particularly married to any style per se, but I understand that that's very sage advice from one of the most popular, dark fantasy authors out there, Mark Lawrence, who knows what he's talking about, what would appeal in terms of sales. So, I certainly understand where that advice came from.
But also for me, it was more natural as well. It felt easier to develop the characters in this style. But if you can do really well the gut narration, you can do that as well. However, when you translate, I think the third pov is even better for that too. But yeah, I really like actually that the first novel is like this, because there are so many indie authors that they choose to. So because I think it's a universal truth that the first book always will be the worst of an author. If you have like 10 series out, maybe your first book in the third series will be fantastic. But if it's your first book, the first book that you ever written, it will not be the best. It will be like the weakest in your series, I would say. And this is a universal truth for any author, indie or traditional, I think. So, and I see many indie authors that they republish the first book at some point. So when they are in the second or the third book of the series, they might republish the first story, which nothing against about. I think it's a very good idea if somebody wants to change some things. And the story doesn't change. They don't change the story, just some storytelling stuff, some techniques that they change. Personally, I would never do that, because I think that The Return of the Knights, it's a book that shows a lot the evolution of the writing. And this is a good thing to see. And also I like it that it's a bit of a hybrid. So it's a bit of character and story driven instead of purely character driven. Because I like to have variety, so I like to have another style there. I don't think it's a bad thing. And then you jump to the other books and you see the evolution, and then yeah, I mean, the story moves, the character moves. So it's just that the Return of the Knights, it's a bit fast. So it starts with a battle. I can give this spoiler. So you open the first page and you are in the middle of a battle, and people die. It's like it's like crazy. Then I slow down a bit and I start showing around how we ended up there. So I started with a lot of action. That's it. But I don't regret this. I don't think if I could go. So if I could go to the past, maybe I would just keep the hybrid style from the beginning instead of changing it in the English version. But I wouldn't change the book. That's the thing.
Well, you know what, Greg? I so applaud you on that. I totally agree with you. I can look at my writing and say the same thing. I'd like to think I've become a better writer as my series has progressed, and that book one is my weakest book. But I love book one for the fact that it's also an outlier. Just like you're saying, my book one is also an outlier. It's different from the other books. There's a lot more lore, and as you say, a lot more exposition and a lot more. But I feel that the way I did it, because it will call back to, there will be constant callbacks to that book, and I did it for a reason. But even so, I do like the fact that I feel that I'm a progressive writer, and that someone reading my series can say, well, PL's, look how PL's develops, right? And I think that's important. And I think that's, it's kind of like, and I equate books to almost like having your children, as a parent, that you get better at parenting the more children you have, right? So, I feel that there is something to be said for having a first book that understandably is your weakest, but that you can see the evolution as the writing progresses. And I absolutely love that. So kudos to you. I wouldn't change a thing about my book, and for all its flaws and for all its issues, I wouldn't change a thing. It's so refreshing to hear a writer say something very similar, and I totally agree with you. I wouldn't change a thing. Take my first book with all its warts, and then hopefully you grow to love that more as you see how the series develops.
Yeah, it's something I really like in this, because maybe some people will say also your characters make some stupid decisions in book one, but that's the beauty of it, because in the book one they are immature as well. So you see the development in the writing, but you see the development in the characters as well. Even if they're real persons, they would make some stupid decisions. So it's all of this I really like. That's why I wouldn't change. I wouldn't change something. Maybe I would change like some small details, but I wouldn't go to rewrite to make it a bit different. And no, I wouldn't do that. I think it's a good thing, and also I think it's a good thing I have a book with two styles, that it's a bit hybrid. Actually, I don't find it as a bad thing. I sometimes there are some techniques in writing that they have hype, and people think that now they're better, but these things change all the time.
Yeah.
So maybe in 10 years something else will come back, or something else will be the most popular thing. So I don't like to go with the trend as well all the time. So it's
no, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. So how has it been? And maybe perhaps before I ask that, so you did decide eventually to become a writer, and you have written books that have done very well. But you decided to become an indie author, and that may not be a static thing, that you continue being an indie author. But what went into that decision, as opposed to perhaps going the traditional route and trying to find an agent and pitching your book, and what went into that decision?
So I would say at the beginning it was a bit random, but now I'm happy about this decision. So in Greece, I have a publisher. So I have seen that, because in Greece, it's almost impossible to not have one. There is not Amazon, so you don't have many choices. I think there are some small presses that it's like self-publishing in the sense that you pay and they publish some books. But you need to people need to be able to find your book in a bookstore. Otherwise, it's not feasible to publish something. And there's not an agent, so you just pitch your book directly to the publishers, and they decide who they take. And mostly it's romance and stuff, or most of the books are translated, so they buy the rights of English books and they translate them. So the space for Greek authors is small by default. So when I published in Greece, then I thought to translate the novel because I was living back then in Austria, then in the UK. So I thought, why not? And try in the English market where the fantasy audience is massive. And I realized that the process is very, very different in the English market because you need to find an agent, you need to pitch your book in the agents, and then they need to pitch the book in the publishers and stuff. And I thought, so I might spend a year doing that. So I cycled it around to pitch in 40 agents, and maybe I will get rejections. Maybe somebody will be interested. Yeah, you don't know.
Yeah.
And I started searching the indie publishing. So all these things that exist in the UK and US and Canada, all the English market, but don't exist in Greece. So that there is Ingram, there is Amazon, you can do ads. And also, I started in 2021. So I started searching, but I published the first book in 2023. And I realized that maybe because if you search this stuff online, you'll find many opinions saying that indie books are not so good, they're not well edited and stuff like this. And I didn't really agree. I think there are amazing traditional published books and amazing indie published books.
Yeah.
And it depends how much work an author puts. So there are authors that they do it as well as with a traditional publisher. They have two editors. As myself, I do 2 rounds of editing. Myself, I have translation, which is something more rare. They do audiobooks. They have amazing covers. They do very good formattings, and the quality of the books from Ingram is amazing. So I can say I believe that it evolved that much, the indie publishing, that now if you go to a bookstore and you have one side only with indie publisher books and one with traditional, and people don't know what is what.
Yeah.
I think just by looking at the covers, they might go to the indie ones. So it evolved that much, and it's because also the author knows exactly what the book is about. So they have a very good perception about what the cover needs to be, what will be good for my story. They take a scene. While, okay, of course, the publishers put work on that. I'm not saying that these people don't do good work, but they don't know the story as the author. So, and when you give your story in a publisher, they will decide the cover, they will do the editing, they might ask you to cut some characters or some pages. You have word counts that you cannot pass if you're not very well known. So, yeah, you see some indie authors that they start with huge books that traditional publishers don't like because they cost more.
Yeah.
Or they would have a cover that the author might don't like because they think it doesn't fit that well. And these things are vital. And that's why I think people found a new way in the indie publishing. And some are very successful, actually, on that. Extremely successful, like Michael Miller, Ryan Cahill, and many indie authors. And now I'm very happy about this decision because I wouldn't like to spend a year pitching in the agents my first novel. And then even if I found an agent, maybe they would ask to cut some pages and stuff like that. I'm not saying in the future I will never consider it. I know that some traditional publishers, they do great job. They have very successful series and they are really knowledgeable around the industry and everything. But for me personally, I think it's better to start like this, build an audience. And maybe if at some point I decide with a new book to go hybrid and have some traditional publish or some indie, that's an option as well. Actually, it's good to have options. That's the idea. It's extra options, and having options is good because some years ago, if you couldn't find an agent, your book would just stay in your computer or in your closet or whatever. So
no, I totally agree. I'm gonna quickly put out the awesome Shad Zaman. Hey Shad, thanks for coming out and saying hi. Shad is a wonderful member of the community, always supporting authors and booktubers. I've had the privilege of meeting him in person. He's just a great fellow. And thanks so much, Shad, for coming out to support Gregory and to say hi. Always great to see you in the chat. So, yeah, and I think again, we always talk about this with guests on the channel that indie's breaking new ground. It's really changing and revolutionizing the industry, and clearly, you've demonstrated that you can be one of these success stories in the indie market. Are there any indie authors that you've had a chance to read, that you've enjoyed their work, that are
Oh, there are many. So I don't read that much these days because when I write, it affects my writing a bit. So when I have like a break, I try to read something. But sometimes now, because I'm writing fantasy as well, I'm trying to read something else. Like I read fantasy or crime, so I might read crime just to change it a bit and then return to the fantasy. But yeah, I have read many. So it's let me think. The ones that it was from Philip Chase, the trilogy, the last I read. It was very, very good. From the Elden Ring from Kian Ardalan, the first book, but the second is not out yet. This is really grimdark. So really, really.
Yes. I've heard it's very dark. It's on my TBR. I haven't got to it yet, but I heard it's very dark.
So, and I was reading from Zach Steele, his first book, The Whispers.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I want then to go to Michael Miller, The Price of Power, but I haven't read that. And yeah, those are the ones I have in my mind now. I'm sure there are others that I don't recall right now. Yeah, I want to start with The Unbound as well from Michael Miller. I want to read this one because everybody says that the dragon story in this it's phenomenal. So
yeah, I've heard the same. Yeah,
yeah, I'm trying to remember if it's something else recently that I don't remember, but I can't.
and what about some of the traditionally published fantasy books that you read recently?
I read the first two books from Sauna Lawless.
Oh yes,
yeah, fabulous. She's an amazing writer, and from the book trilogy, the first book of Mark Lawrence, The Book That Would Burn.
Oh, I have to read. I've read a lot of Mark Lawrence, but I haven't read that.
It's very different compared to the rest of his stuff. It's something. It's more expanding world building. It's very interesting, but I haven't read the second yet. I have it here, but I haven't started it yet. And what else from traditional? Yeah, I haven't read the last one from the Stormlight Archive. I didn't have that because they're so big, so you need to commit, and it's not easy these days with all my stuff going on. But yeah, definitely I will read that at some point. Way of Kings, it's one of my favorites, the first one. And it's opening. I love it. It's yeah, those are the ones I have in mind now. And I read some crime ones too, no fantasy. So from Jon Nesbo, who is my favorite crime author.
Okay, yeah. No, that's fair. And reading outside the genre sometimes can really, I think, just not only rounding out your reading, but I think it can potentially improve your writing, even if you're writing in another genre, because you pick up tricks and elements that you might be able to incorporate into your fantasy writing. So that's certainly not a bad thing. So that's just to
came to my mind. So I read.
Oh, please, yes.
The trilogy from Zachar Gyle.
And
read also the first book of Diago Abdallah.
I have to get to that. I
read that too, but it's like 2 years ago. So yeah, it's been some time. So yeah, I'm sure there are more. I just remember them all. I had the most recent in my.
Yeah, I really have to get to Diago's work, and I want to have him on the show too. And I want to read his stuff first, so I really have to get to that. But I've definitely read Zach Argyle's trilogy, one of my favorite indie fantasy trilogies is out there. But I keep reading. My reading's really slowed down this year, but I'm trying to make next year a better reading year. But there's just so much that's out there.
This year was very bad for me as well in terms of reading, because I had so much. I have a day job as well, and I worked in finance. So between finance and writing, because I had many releases this year. And there is also an anthology that I work with some amazing authors that we haven't announced anything yet, but
Oh, okay.
so with short stories. And yeah, I don't want to say more. I want the official
Okay.
announcement to
Okay.
come. And yeah, with all of these things and the new book in Greek, and I had an English version for my third book, The Rise of the West, it was extremely hard to do anything besides writing and working. Also now, actually, I want to say that I have like a very nice cooperation with Broken Binding. So books 1 and 2,
Yes.
they will be out, signed, and numbered. So only for 100 copies, books 1 and 2, and they will ship around November or December. It's not the date is not finalized yet, but the pre-order is open. So this is another amazing thing this year. And yeah, so it was a very, very busy year.
Yes, but it sounds like a fantastic year, though. So totally understandable why your reading kind of slacked a bit. But congratulations on all this success, Gregory. You've been doing amazing, and I know there's more to come. So as we're winding down here, I just want to confirm. So right now, you have the novella out. You have The Night of the Moon. You have book 1, Return of the Knights. You have book 2, Fall of the Giants. You have book 3, Rise of the West. So book 4 is about to be released. Is
No, so it's about to be released in Greece and in UK, in the English market, UK, US, Canada, Australia. It will be published in next May or June 2026. And then I have 2 books coming. So it will be the book 5, which is the end of the main series, and a prequel. And I'm not sure about the order. We'll see. I don't know. I think book 5 might take a little bit longer. So maybe in between the prequel is released. I'm not sure yet. And after that, let's see. I don't know. Maybe I will write something in the same world some years before or after, or something completely new. I always want to write like a fantasy crime something. But more urban fantasy, so in a real place.
I see. I see. Well, that sounds amazing. So, are you able to give us a title for book 4? I know you may not be able to, but I know it's being released in Greece. Is it? Have you told people what the title is for book 4?
It's the Sin of War.
The Sin of War. Okay,
so
I like that
it's a
title.
book. Actually, for me personally, it's the most important book. I think it's more important even than the finale, even than the 5th, because it's one of these books that everything changes in the sense that, okay, you think that I have some great characters and there are the good and bad ones, and yeah, I know this is bad, I know this is good. Everything turns around, so you cannot trust anyone in this book. Yeah, people make some really, I wouldn't say bad decisions, but I would say some, yeah, it's bad decisions actually. Some rash decisions and angry decisions, and yeah, after so many years of war, and things turn ugly, I would say. So it's a very unique book for me, especially because some stuff, even when I was writing them, they felt heavy. But even me, I didn't know it's where the story takes me, and I feel that this is the reasonable thing to happen. So
Okay. Well, I can't wait to dive in. I'm so hoping to get started on your main series.
And I want your books as well. I have them actually. I have them here. Yeah.
Oh wow! Oh, thank you so much. Well, I'm honored. Well, whenever you get to them, they're not going
I have
anywhere.
so many books. I need to.
Yeah, and thank you so much. You're so generous to send me copies of your main series. And again, I will get to. I'm so incredibly honored. Thank you so much, and I definitely look forward to reading them. And this was great. So it only just made me more enthused to get to your main series. So
for the Drowned King, so I want to check this one.
Thank you so much, my friend. So, as we're winding down, I want to just give you an opportunity to let everyone know where they can find you on social media, where they can buy your books, if they would like to get them in Greek, or if you have any other translations out there, and of course English, and anything you'd like to do to promote your work and promote you.
So about socials, I have more or less everything these days. So it's mainly I'm active in Instagram and no, sorry, not TikTok and X. So those are the two that I'm the most active. But these days I'm trying a little bit to have some videos on TikTok as well. And I am on Facebook as well, but and Blue Sky, but I don't use them that much, I would say. So my books, somebody can find my books more or less everywhere in many bookstores, like Barnes and Noble, Waterstones in UK, Walmart. So in many bookstores and Amazon, of course. And there is an audiobook as well. Also, as I said before, there is the Broken Binding edition now for books 1 and 2, which is signed and numbered. And after this edition, we'll have also the third book. We'll see. Maybe it will be the third book and the novella, or the third book and fourth. We will see after the first two. So if somebody wants like signed copies and numbers, that's an amazing opportunity. For the Greek story, somebody can find in all the bookstores in Greece, and there is also an ebook from the publisher, which is called Ocelotos. There is no audiobook. Audiobooks are not that big in Greece. So yeah, it's mainly ebook and paperbacks. And yeah, I mean, I always say that every person who reads my stories, if they want to comment and tell me their thoughts and stuff, I love that. I always like to read reviews and yeah, the thoughts of people around the books. If they like something better in the beginning of the series, they like something more after, and stuff like this. I'm really open for for all the reviews, because yeah, some people are even scared to say their thoughts. It's yeah, that's it more or less. And thank you very much, everybody, for watching that. Or even if you bought my books, thank you very much for all the support. I never thought that I will be here, so it's amazing.
Well, congratulations on all success. For those of you who weren't aware, I had the privilege of meeting Greg. Actually, I've seen him twice now at the
Yeah.
last two World Cons. In the first one in Glasgow, and I just saw him a few months ago in Seattle, Washington, in the U.S. And that's just amazing. He's such an incredible person. Your partner, she's also so lovely. Just lovely people, both of you. It's been a real treasure to meet you.
Thank you so much. So to you, and I met your wife as well. And yeah, you're great people. And actually, this is the fantastic thing with cons, because so many people from social media and online, but then you meet people in person. It's way better. It's these cons are so nice, and so many indie authors go these days. So, and Trad, of course, and it's so nice. And this year, especially, the whole panel with George Martin and Sanderson, it was amazing.
Yeah, that was a big highlight. Kudos to Adrian Gibson and all the people involved in SFF Addicts in bringing that huge panel with Ryan Cahill and Rebecca Rohorse and George R. Martin and Robin Hobb and everyone else that was involved there. That was huge. But yeah, it was a big highlight. I hope to see you again in person. I won't be in LA next year, but hopefully. If you're interested, I in Montreal in 2027 in Canada. Come over to Canada if you're able to.
I will try. I will try to do LA as well, and I wants to go to Brandon Sanderson one in Utah.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, maybe that or Dragon Con. But I think next year it's impossible for somebody to do WorldCon and Dragon Con, because are more or less
right.
So you will have to, maybe one of the two. Probably WorldCon instead of Dragon Con, and then I will see if I can join the Dragon Steel one as well. I really want to go to this one once.
Yeah. That's a big one, very popular. So, but everybody, please go out and buy Greg's books. This is fabulous. If you're looking for a great novella, fast-paced, dynamic, great characters, dark. It's gonna bring out the feels. when you read it. Check out The Night of the Moon. It was amazing. I cannot wait to read Greg's main series because, again, it's time. But Dance of Light, definitely, hopefully in 2026, I'll be getting to that. So everybody, I want to thank everybody, including Shad, who is, even those who maybe haven't commented but have been watching the live. Kudos to everyone, and appreciate you who are going to watch the replay. You are what makes this type of long form content amazing. All hate long form content. It's one of my favorite parts of BookTube. And for me, just the privilege of getting to interview amazing people such as Greg, it's just, I'm very humbled that I get to do that. So again, check out Greg and all his books. All his links are in the video, and hopefully you'll get to enjoy some brilliant fantasy. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And Greg and I are signing off. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.